speaker, Lauren. Excellent. Okay, so I'm here with Lauren Perkins. She's a teaching quality manager at British Council English Online. So she's based in the UK. She's been working for the British Council since 2008 and has been a teacher and teacher trainer, both face-to-face and online, in Thailand, Bangladesh, Rwanda, Palestine, and Jordan. So since completing her MA in Applied Linguistics and ELT in 2017, she's maintained a special interest in developing classroom interactional competence, especially in the online classroom. So, okay, we're really excited and really lucky to have you here today with all of that wealth of experience and those interests. So welcome, Lauren. I'll pass over to you. And I'm here if you need me. Okay, I'm going to disappear now, but still here.
Thank you so much, Jo. It's so lovely to be here. And yeah, as I said before, it's so nice to see lots of familiar names in the chat as well. Welcome. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about how to maximize student interaction, or just interaction, in the online classroom. So as Jo said, I'm a teaching quality manager, which is like an academic manager for lots of online teachers, teaching with the British Council's product English Online. And so I did have a lot of interest in like interaction and how to use interaction to mediate learning opportunities in the classroom, in the face-to-face classroom. But since working with English Online for almost 2 years now, it's kind of been extended to the online context as well. So today, we're going to explore how to maximize this interaction by looking at lots of practical ideas to address some challenges that you face making your online classes interactive. So this is from the pre-webinar task I sent you, and also so from lots of English Online teachers who've talked to me about the challenges that they face as well. So this is what we're going to be looking at. So first of all, we're going to start with looking at the importance of online interaction or interaction in general, and then start with a definition so we know exactly what we're talking about. Then we're going to talk about your prior experience and your prior knowledge, focusing on the pre-webinar task, but also I'll be asking you some questions put in the chat as well. And that will lead on to us talking about some challenges, like the main challenges that you've identified of making online classes interactive. And then we'll spend most of the session talking about practical ideas to overcome these challenges. So a lot of these practical ideas have come from teachers working with English Online and managers working with English Online as well. And hopefully they can all be adapted for your context as well, okay? And then at the end, hopefully we'll have enough time for lots of reflection and an action plan of what you will take away from this session. So hopefully this session will be a little bit interactive and very practical. Hopefully you'll get lots of ideas to take away and use in your own classes. So the importance of interaction. Let's start with a definition from Scott Thornbury. Interaction occurs when learners communicate with one another or with their teacher. So it's been quite a common thing for the communicative approach to use interaction and communicative activities, and particularly student-student interaction as well. And Michael Long talked about the interaction hypothesis back in 1983. And he said that language proficiency is best developed through meaningful communication and interaction. So there's lots of evidence with second language acquisition that actually you need interaction in order to create learning opportunities and learn language particularly, okay? And then, yeah, David Noonan said that learners actually learn to communicate by communicating. So when you're teaching English, interaction is key. You actually need to get the learners communicating to learn how to communicate. So this is how important it is. But this is all developed. I mean, these quotations are from before 2017 or 2004. So this is mainly talking about face-to-face interaction. And so it's a little bit different with online interaction as well. And it's a little bit more challenging. So I wanted to know, before we started the webinar, your prior experience. So I sent out a pre-webinar task, which quite a few of you completed. And here are the results. I wanted to know what your teaching context was. Whether adults online, young learners online, adults face-to-face, or young learners face-to-face. And you could select more than one, because sometimes you do sort of hybrid, some classes online, some classes face-to-face. And this is the results. So the blue is the biggest one. So lots of you were teaching adults online. And this is particularly group classes as well. So, yeah, so a lot of these challenges and practical ideas that we're going to be talking about today are going to be applicable to those who are teaching adults online and also young learners online. But we're going to be comparing online teaching with face-to-face teaching as well. So if you'd like to write in the chat what I think a lot of you are already doing this. So what your main teaching context is, whether it's, okay, I can see lots of young learners online, adults online. Okay, young learners face-to-face. Okay, brilliant. So some of you are doing like online and face-to-face, a kind of hybrid. That's great. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, so lots of you have got experience with both online and face-to-face. So at English Online, we only teach adults. So a lot of the practical ideas are appropriate for adults, but I've also included some ideas from some young learner teachers as well. Okay, brilliant. So I want you to think about face-to-face classes now. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how interactive are your face-to-face classes? So 1 being not interactive at all, to 5 being very interactive. What do you think about your face-to-face classes only? Okay, lots of 4s, lots of 5s. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so mainly 4s and 5s, that's pretty good. So you include lots of communication and interaction in your face-to-face classes. Brilliant. Okay. 3s, some 3s in there, that's great. Okay, now let's compare that to online classes. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how interactive are your online classes? So can we have a look there? Okay. A little bit lower, I would say, some 2s and 3s. That is what I expected. Oh, honestly, 5. Yeah. But some of you make them as interactive, like some of you have got some 4s and 5s in there as well. That's great. Yeah, but a few 1s in there as well. So it is more challenging to make online classes as interactive as your face-to-face classes. And we talked about these challenges in the pre-webinar task as well. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for writing your scale in the chat. We'll actually come back to this type of activity later. So keep this in mind about what we did. So also from the pre-webinar task, I asked you, how do you make online classes interactive? And I've put lots of your ideas in order on here. So the ones at the top are the most popular answers. So lots of you said use breakout rooms. And for the purpose of this webinar, I'm going to be like talking about them as BORs, breakout rooms, just so you know what I'm talking about when we talk about breakout rooms. Lots of you said use the chat box, like you're all doing really well now. So yeah, those are the most common ways to make online classes interactive. And then lots of you talked about interactive collaborative boards like Jamboard and things like that, and other online apps like Padlet and things like that. And also how to, like, you play online games, especially with younger learners. So Kahoot is great for making classes interactive in that way. In this session, we're not going to be talking about too many apps and extra things. We're just going to be talking about using the platform that you're using. And actually, it's going to be, we all use Zoom, and it's quite a popular platform to use for online teaching. So a lot of the practical ideas I talk about today will be about using Zoom and just the platform to make it interactive, okay? Yeah, lots of you said, oh, use role plays and stuff like that, even online, and we'll be looking at lots of ideas of how to use role plays in online classes. And then interestingly, more specific things, some people said, oh, engage students by name, so you nominate them, and ask open-ended questions. That's a great way to sort of maximize student talking time, which we'll be talking about later as well. Okay, great. So also in the pre-webinar task, I asked you about 3 challenges. And I said, these are some challenges that we've identified for making online classes interactive or maximizing interaction in the online classroom. And I asked you, which is the one that's most familiar to you, which one you identify with, and actually the results are equal. You all said that you thought that each one was very challenging. So interactive activities can be complex to set up online, especially those things like information gaps, jigsaw activities, role plays with lots of different role cards. It can be quite challenging to set up. The orange one, it's actually quite difficult to effectively monitor if students are in lots of different breakout rooms. That's another quite common challenge. And then learners can be reluctant to participate. Maybe they're confidence, maybe they're a bit shy, or they just, yeah, don't want to participate. They want to lurk. So these are the 3 challenges that I identified, and then you said that these are challenges for you as well. But I also asked you to identify more challenges that you have when making online classes interactive. And I've collated the most popular ones. So these are the challenges. The 3 that I identified beforehand that I've just been through. But then one of the most common challenges that you highlighted was there's not enough time to do interactive activities in online classes. So time management problems. Maybe, yeah, you don't, you have lots of other things to do to get through. You don't have time to set up breakout rooms and do all the things like that. So yeah, time management is an issue. And then the next challenge, learners have fewer opportunities to speak in online classes. Sometimes when teachers teach online, they tend to have higher amount of TTT, teacher talking time, and that leaves learners with fewer opportunities to speak. But this is mainly, you know, in a face-to-face class when you say, okay, quickly talk to your partner for 1 minute, ask each other the question. It's very difficult to do that in online classes, because you can't just say, oh, I'm just going to quickly put you into pairs in breakout rooms for 1 minute, because by the time they've all joined the breakout room and got sorted and introduced themselves to their partner, it's time to finish. So there are fewer opportunities to speak in online classes just by the nature of the online class. Okay. And then the most common challenge that you identified was this, number 6, technical issues. So I scanned all the challenges that you wrote in the pre-webinar task, and many of you said technical issues such as internet connectivity. My students have their cameras off, we can't hear them, they can't unmute. And so, yeah, this is a massive challenge for teachers and students, technical issues, especially if your students are in remote locations, maybe in rural locations in their country and things like that. Yeah, so I think, like, I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. I think, yes, unclear audio. Yes, challenge number 6 is a top issue. Yes, so these are the 6 challenges that we're going to be focusing on today. And we're going to be looking at lots of practical ideas to overcome these challenges. Okay. And I'm going to be looking for you to provide more ideas as well, because a lot of you are experienced online teachers, and I'm sure you have some ideas of your own to share too. So here are some practical ideas to overcome each of these 6 main challenges. So for the first challenge, interactive activities can be complex to set up online. So my idea is to set up interactive activities effectively, and how you can do that, particularly online on Zoom. Instruction giving is very, very important when you're setting up online activities. So more than ever, you need to give clear instructions and then check these instructions with instruction checking questions very clearly, just 1 or 2. Just say, okay, are you going to be working in pairs or groups? How long do you have? Something like that, very quickly. But then what the key idea here is to leave those instructions that you gave, or that was on the slide, in the chat box or on the screen if they're going to be in the main room, and leave them there so that students can see them while they do the activity. This is particularly important if they're going into breakout rooms, because you give instructions to a task or an activity, they go to breakout rooms and they go, what are we doing again? Because you can't share your screen to the breakout rooms from the main room without, and then if you do that, you can, like, Zoom actually technically lets you do that, but it then disappears when you go into the breakout rooms to monitor. So you need to leave it in the chat. And sometimes if people are on phones, they'll need to open the slide before they go into breakout rooms. So they have it on their screen. They might need to download the image before they go in. But on computers and laptops, they can just go to the chat while they're in the breakout room, and it's all there already. And recently, I think in the last few months, Zoom updated and made it really easy to share screenshots in the chat, and that little button at the bottom in that picture, that's how you share a screenshot without taking pictures of your students and things like that, because you don't really want to do that for safeguarding reasons. So that's the first idea. So just really clear instructions, and leave these instructions in the chat or on the screen if they're in the main room. Then another thing, you need to set a timer. So as well as giving a time limit, say, okay, you've got 5 minutes for this activity, it's quite difficult to keep track of the time for the students. So set a timer in the main room. You can use an online timer, or if they're in the breakout rooms, set a timer on there. So in the breakout room settings, before you click create breakout room, you put a time limit. So you can say 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. But then if they can see that, they have a little button saying time remaining when they're in the breakout room, and then they can manage their time. They manage how much they say in that breakout room activity as well. So they can see, oh, I've only got two minutes left. Right, we better hurry up and do this task. So that's quite important as well. And then finally, for this one, this is an idea that I got from a colleague of mine, but if you need to group and regroup students for a breakout room activity, like later in the class, rename your students. So maybe as they're entering the session, the live class, you could just go to rename and say, if they come in and say, oh, I'm Pedro, you put Pedro A. Or you could put it in brackets, otherwise they might think that you're like changing their surname or something. But tell them that you're doing this as well. I'm just going to rename you for groupings later. And if you have the same students all the time, this can be some learner training. You can like teach them or train them that to expect you to do this. So this is particularly good for jigsaw activities, information gap activities, those activities that are a little bit more complicated to set up because you have to have all the student A's in one room and then you have to regroup and have like A, B, C in each group. But if you rename them when you're setting up breakout rooms, you can clearly like move them around and you know who was in each original group. So that's quite a good technique for remembering and just do that. And just after a while, if you have the students used to doing this, you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm going to read out the groups, you rename yourselves. Okay, so you'd be like, okay, Pedro A, Rodrigo B, Maria C, and then they can rename themselves, and that can save a lot of time as well. But that's just one technique for setting up those sort of like role play activities, and that can work well as well, even if it's just two groups, student A and student B, that can work quite well, especially if you want them in two groups talking to each other. It just saves that embarrassing bit where you're like, oh, I've forgotten who was in each original group. So that's one idea to set up those complicated activities. So those are my 3 ideas for this first challenge of how to set up interactive activities effectively. I want to ask you for your ideas, and if you can write some more ideas in the chat that maybe I haven't mentioned, or some other ideas related to the setting up. Can you just write some ideas in the chat? Sharing beforehand the task they need to open up. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, use apps that can help. Oh, yes. So you can ask them to take a photo or a screenshot of the instructions themselves. You just need to make sure that they don't take photos of your face and things like that. So there's a few safeguarding things with that. Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, I'm reading them out. Yes, Maria said instructions need to be more detailed and staged compared to face-to-face instructions. Yes, definitely. Thanks, Maria. Have students upload what they produce in shared folders? Yeah. Okay, great. Model the dialogue or interaction you expect. That's a great one. So demonstrate, rather than sort of give instructions like in a long convoluted way, just demonstrate. Yeah, that's really good. Maybe demonstrate with a strong student. Yeah. One idea is explain that they have to press the join button when the pop-up for breakout rooms appears. Yes, I'm going to get back to that later when we're talking about saving time, because there's actually a way to not have that pop up because that's so time consuming. Yeah. Yes, good idea to put someone like a leader for each group. We're going to get to that one as well, of the second one. Okay, brilliant. thank you for your ideas. Oh, yeah, so someone else said about consider giving roles to each person in the breakout room. It's like you've looked at my slides already. So we're going to go into that in a minute. So the challenges of another challenge to making online classes interactive is that it's difficult to monitor students if they're in separate breakout rooms. So the second challenge, we need to make breakout room activities inclusive, interactive, and well monitored. So, like you said, Lamia, assign roles. And I think this was in the pre-webinar task as well. So give each member of the group in a breakout room their own role to ensure that everyone participates evenly, no one feels left out. We can have lots of different ones. We can have a monitor. We can have a note taker, timekeeper, involver, someone who gets everyone participating as much as possible. So that's quite a good idea for breakout rooms. Yeah, assigning particular roles. And if you have the same group of students all the time, then this gets easy because they'll be like, oh, okay, I'm that person again. And it's a bit more learner training involved, but they'll soon get the idea. Especially like note taker, or like if you say, okay, you're going to be the speaker when you finish. So we can do feedback and you're going to report back what your group talked about. So this is one of my favorite ideas. Be clear about who should speak first in the breakout room. Get them started straight away. So for example, you say, student A is going to start. So they don't sort of go to the breakout room and then just be like, oh, who wants to go first? And they're about like a minute or 2 minutes can be wasted when they're like deciding. So you can be really specific and say, I want this person to start, okay? And for lower level learners, it's quite a good idea to tell them exactly how to begin, okay? You say this, or maybe give them a useful language bank. So something that they can actually say at the beginning to start them off. So this is particularly good with lower levels as well, but it's also saving time. The next idea was also in the pre-webinar task materials, use tripods. So if you've got quite a lot of breakout rooms, you can, instead of having pairs, set up groups of 3 and one person can have the role of a monitor. And you can maybe give them some things to look out for, some useful language that you've just learned, and they can tick it off as they go along and like, okay, listen to the other 2 speaking, and then tick the phrases that they use that you've just learned or something like that. But always give the monitor a task of something to do. Okay, give them a room to listen to the other 2. And then they can maybe report back about what the other 2 talked about. But then they can swap as well. So it's kind of like using your students as a monitor to help you out because you can't be everywhere at once. In the same way as a face-to-face class, really, like you can't be in every single group at the same time. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to use your students as monitors as well. And then, of course, we're teachers, we always have to monitor anyway. So a good idea is to monitor breakout rooms really quickly at first, to check everyone's on task, to check everyone's speaking and not sitting in silence, and then more carefully a second time around. And then you can make notes for like language focused feedback to bring up at the end. So, I mean, the first time that you monitor breakout rooms, you can literally spend maybe 4 seconds in each, and you could just like listen for someone speaking English and interacting. You'd be like, okay, you're fine. Oh, you're fine. And then a second time more slowly. Now, one point to mention here, if you have large classes, I advise you to have fewer breakout rooms, because if you have 20 students and you want everyone working in pairs, that's 10 breakout rooms that you'll have to go around and monitor. And if it's a 5-minute activity, you just have to be like going really, really quickly, and you'll only be able to just do them all once. So if you have a large number of students, I advise you to have a smaller number of breakout rooms. So maybe groups of 3 and 4 rather than pairs in those situations. If you have like 8 students, perfect, have them in pairs. You can easily monitor 4 breakout rooms, that's fine. So yeah, that's how you can make breakout room activities interactive, well monitored, and also inclusive. So, oh, hi, David, you've just written something in the chat there. Yeah. So tripods, yes, they are great. And encourage learner autonomy. Yes, it's part of learner training as well. Yeah, thanks, David. So has anyone got any other practical ideas for making breakout rooms interactive and well monitored? Can you write them in the chat? Ah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, making sure the task fits a breakout room. Yeah, so sometimes tasks that we do in the face-to-face classroom doesn't really fit a breakout room activity. For example, like find someone who, that doesn't really fit often. Ask open and closed questions. Yeah, you can do. You can be specific about what kind of questions that you ask in the breakout rooms. Yeah. Yes, so ask the students to report back what their classmates said. And this is an interesting one. Always give your students a reason to listen to each other as well. So if you give them a task for the breakout rooms, give the listeners something to do. So why do I have to listen to this person telling a story? Oh, it's because you're going to report back what's the most interesting part of the story. But you have to be careful about time with that. So if you're asking someone to report back at the end of a breakout room activity, you've got 20 students and you've got everybody reporting back something like what they said in the breakout rooms, that can be very time consuming as well. So when you're doing that reporting backstage, be selective, just nominate a few groups to give content feedback, and maybe give them very focused tasks, like say one interesting thing they found out from their group or partner, not tell me everything they said. Yeah, okay, reporting back is better for the small groups. Yeah, you can ask other groups to make questions for the other group. Yeah, that's a good idea. Love the idea of tripods. Yeah. Okay, great. And someone's asking for individualized classes. So I think maybe they mean one-to-one classes as well. Yeah, we're kind of individualized or one-to-one, I don't know. Yeah, for one-to-one classes, get the learner to ask you more questions. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Most of these ideas are sort of for student-student interaction, but yeah, to sort of getting the student to lead the way in one-to-one classes is the way to go, I think. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Set up a project where participants work together outside the class and apply what they've learned if they have the chance. Yeah, that's sort of a bit of a link to a flipped classroom approach, which we'll be talking about in a minute. Okay, let's move on. So the third challenge, learners can be reluctant to participate in interactive activities. Maybe they lack confidence, they're too scared to speak, maybe they're afraid of making mistakes. Here are some ideas. So how to motivate your learners to participate. Get them speaking in breakout rooms right from the start. Maybe you're doing a warmer or a lead-in. I think the idea is to start the class as you mean to go on. You can start by saying, okay, everyone, I've got some questions, go to a breakout room, talk about them. It gets them into English mode. It sets their expectations for the rest of the class. You can be like, oh, right, this is a class where I'm expected to participate. And yeah, it's kind of like a proper warm up, get them actually speaking at the beginning. And also you can use it as a bit of a sort of diagnostic needs analysis, especially if you're doing a task-based lesson. You can see what they know already. You can like listen to see what mistakes they're using and use that to inform what you teach them in the rest of the class as well. So I think that's key, just to get them speaking straight away. The second idea is also from a colleague of mine. He said to give praise or immediate feedback right at the beginning, okay? But often like positive feedback. So give the quieter students more confidence to speak. And also in the same way as the first bit about getting them speaking straight away, set their expectations for the rest of the class. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. This is what's expected in this class. Everyone have confidence in speaking. So you can give immediate feedback. You can point out lots of good language use that they're using from the very beginning. Just give them that encouragement to speak, okay? So I would focus on praise and positive feedback at the beginning, and then work at more sort of constructive feedback later on as well. So this is an idea that works well with young learner classes as well. I mean, the chat is really good for including a competitive element. You can ask your students to race and write answers to activities in the chat. If you say, okay, what's the answer to number 1? Go. And they'll be writing, and then whoever writes it first is the winner. That's a great way to motivate them to participate. And yeah, the chat is perfect for that as well. Okay. And then it's also always important to give the students thinking time, planning time, give them time to like form a response before eliciting it in front of the whole class. So don't just put people on the spot, give them time to formulate their answers. Okay, so that's quite key for increasing confidence as well. Just like you would do in a face-to-face classroom, it's also very important online as well. So any more ideas for how to motivate learners to participate? Please write them in the chat. Oh, give them a prize. Yeah, it's always motivating. It's quite difficult online though. But yeah. Yeah, recycle familiar activities. So that's confidence building. So things that they've done before and enjoyed, you can do it again. Yeah, good idea. Polls are great for motivating them to participate. We saw in Ninaz's session earlier that she used lots of polls, and I felt really motivated to listen because I had participated in a poll. That's especially good with large groups as well. You don't want lots of things in the chat. Okay, great. Yes, provide useful language. That's key. So give them the tools to actually use the language easily. Yeah, great. Okay, great. Yeah, ask questions that are familiar to them and not too complex. Great. Okay, great. Yeah, you can give them points and stars instead of having prizes. Yeah, that's a good idea for online. Okay, brilliant. I'm just seeing if I've missed any. Using emojis, that's actually really good. Like the reactions like function, it's really motivating. If you're monitoring a breakout room and you can just click on the thumbs up or the clapping. That's very motivating as well. Yeah, that's another way of giving feedback. That's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, emojis, perfect. Yes, the Zoom reaction buttons. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, everyone. So moving on to the fourth challenge. There's not enough time to do these interactive activities in online classes. So this is quite a common challenge identified by you in the pre-webinar task. So make more time for online interaction. And one good idea that we use at English Online is we use a flipped classroom approach. So all these sort of time-consuming activities like reading texts, listening to audio files, like grammar exercises and vocabulary activities, do all of those asynchronously before the class. And this leaves more time for like actual interaction in the online class. So this is a screenshot on the right here of an email. It says read the email and choose the correct answers. This is like a typical asynchronous like pre-class activity that they do, and they can read it and do some language focus activities on it before the class. And then in the live class, it's all linked to the same topic, but they've done all of that, you know, the things that they would normally do in the face-to-face class in their course book. They'd maybe do a gap fill or complete the sentence. They do all of that before the class. So the online live class can just be spent on lots of speaking, lots of interaction, something that they really need the teacher's input on, and like, yeah, so practicing speaking as well. So you can do that with your online classes even if you don't have an online platform to show these activities. You can always send your students a reading text, send them a podcast to listen to before this, like all connected to the topic, get them to watch a video beforehand. As long as it's related to the topic of the live class, I think that's a good use of time. If you spend your online class time, okay, everyone watch this video, they can do that before the class time. They don't need you just to start the video for them. So yeah, I think it's a good idea to make more time for online interaction by doing all the time-consuming things before the live class. And as we've shown, like the chat box, especially for short responses to close questions. So like we did in the first activity, I said on a scale of 1 to 5, how interactive are face-to-face classes, and you put a number in, then you can do this kind of activity in an online class, and you can say, oh, how confident do you feel using this language? And then you can ask follow-up questions afterwards using the mic. So, or you can do something connected to the topic that you're teaching. Maybe if you're doing present perfect, you can say, okay, have you ever been to London? And those who say yes, you can then follow up, oh, wow, what did you do there? Who did you go with? And things like that. So it's a bit like a find someone who for the whole class, but use that chat box for the short responses. And that's making more time. So you don't have to waste time asking people the question. They just say no, no, no. But then you can just ask follow-up questions afterwards. And then I think we talked about this briefly earlier, but you can change the breakout room settings to maximize time speaking. So instead of having, I don't know if you can see, but this is a box with this is from the Zoom breakout room settings. So it's a good idea to allow participants to return to the session at any time. But the third one, automatically move all assigned participants into breakout rooms. That stops them having to click join. So that's ideal, really, because that's really time consuming, because some students might have been like, not paying attention and then not realizing that they have to click the button. If you just automatically move them, that's a much better idea. But then don't check the fourth one automatically. Oh no, sorry. Moving on to the next one, auto close breakout rooms after 5 minutes. That's how you set a timed timer. But you don't check the notify me when the time is up, because otherwise you'll be tempted to keep your breakout rooms open for longer and longer. And because you'll be, oh, I don't think they're quite done yet. Be quite strict with your time management, and just stick to it. And then the students can manage their time a little bit better as well. And then have a short countdown after closing breakout rooms. On Zoom, it's usually set to 60 seconds. So they're like, okay, this breakout room will close in 60 seconds. That's a whole extra minute that you're wasting time on this sort of leaving the breakout room. So just set it to a short countdown of about 10 or 15 seconds, and that's ideal. So yeah, these are the recommended settings on Zoom. But yeah, it's a good time-saving technique as well. Okay, I'm noticing that we're a little bit short on time, so I'm going to move on to the 5th challenge. So you need to, for the challenge of learners have fewer opportunities to speak in online classes, increase student talking time as much as possible. And the way of doing this is to reduce your TTT. So instead of reading instructions aloud on the slide, get your students to read them. Read them quietly to themselves, that's fine. If the instructions are there clearly on there. But as someone said in the chat earlier, it's a good idea to model the activities, to demonstrate and ask simple instruction checking questions. So that will reduce your teacher talking time quite a lot. So also you need to nominate students. This is another way to motivate them to participate as well. But a way to increase student talking time is encourage student to student nomination. So Pedro, can you ask someone else, please? So that can sometimes be a little bit time consuming, especially with new classes. But if you have classes that are with the same students all the time, you can kind of train them to do this. They'll know what's to be expected. But it's a good idea to stop sharing your screen when you're doing this student to student nomination, because you need to get the students to see each other, see who's in the room with them. I'll just show you quickly. So there's no one in the room with me right now, but you just stop sharing your screen, and they'll be able to see all the names. And if you have a class of like 20 students, they can all see each other. So you can be like, okay, Pedro, you ask Maria, and they'll ask each other. And then it's kind of removing that barrier of the slide of the screen that you're sharing, and just getting the students to see each other. And it's a bit more like real life interaction. You can see everybody. So in the face-to-face classroom, you might have everybody sitting in a circle looking at each other. So it's a much better idea, especially when you're doing that student to student nomination. So that's my idea for increasing student talking time. Now, the final challenge, which you all identified in the pre-class task, technical issues. So things like internet connectivity, cameras off, unclear audio. So you need to have a plan for when these technical issues occur, not if, because we're all online teachers, we've all experienced these technical issues. Yeah, have a plan for when they occur. So if they can't unmute, they can't speak, maybe their internet connection is not great, ask them to participate using the chat. It's just as good as speaking, really. Like a lot of our communication is done via like text messages and instant messaging. So it's actually still good communication, it's still interaction. So ask them to participate as much as possible using the chat, okay? Then it's a good idea when doing breakout room activities to put learners with technical issues in larger groups. Don't put them in pairs. Like maybe they'll have one student without any technical problems with a student who does, and they'll just be like on their own talking to themselves. That's a bit unfair for the so having them in groups of 3 or 4 is better than pairs for that as well. So then they're not just, it's not fair to the ones that don't have any technical problems to sort of put them with someone who does. And also an idea is to group all learners with the same technical problem together in the same room, so they can interact in the same way. So everybody who doesn't have their camera on for whatever issue, it might be a cultural issue, they don't want to show their face, or it could be for technical reasons because their internet connection is not strong enough. So usually if you have 3 or 4 students in each class without their cameras on, group them all together. And so they can just interact with each other in the same way. And in the same way, if they can't speak, you can just get them to participate with each other using the chat. But as long as they're all in the same boat, kind of thing. And then finally, you need to be prepared to change your lesson and adapt the mode of production. Maybe change the speaking activity that you've got planned into a writing activity using the chat. If a lot of your students are having problems speaking, get them like collaborating on a Google Doc document or using the chat box instead. So be prepared to adapt it according to technical issues that your students are having. So that brings me to the end of my practical ideas for the last challenge. So for technical issues, I know there are a lot more, but let's see. Oh yeah, so I've got a summary of all the things that I've talked about. So the 6 challenges that you identified and how to overcome these challenges are in blue on the right. So this is kind of a summary of what I've talked about. And if we have time, I would like to hear what you would like to put in your briefcase and take away and use immediately. What practical idea that we've talked about today or that you've shared with each other, what would you like to use straight away in your online classes? Maybe an idea for the freezer that you like, but you might save for later. And one idea that you might just have to throw away in the bin because it's not suitable for your context or for your online classes. So if you could just write one of those ideas in there, what you'd like, it'll be really interesting to read.
Hi, Lauren. I've just reappeared because we're really short of time. I don't know if you've noticed.
I have.
You've got so many good ideas. But I'll just leave you with 2 minutes to wrap up. And then we'll take a question if we've got time. But
brilliant.
Just to warn you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, brilliant. Breakout rooms. Yeah. So what's for anything for your briefcase? Oh, everything's useful. That's great. Tripods. Great. Yeah. Yeah, put breakout room learners with the same technical issues. Yeah, great. Larger groups. Excellent. Oh yeah, tripods for the briefcase. Excellent. Okay. So maybe I've got time to talk about some questions.
Excellent. Yeah, let's see if we can do a question or two.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was so interesting. And I just love it because I think when you're sometimes being a teacher feels like a lonely job, doesn't it? And especially if you're online and you don't have that exchange with other teachers that you see in the corridor. Or so I loved some of these ideas. I was thinking, why didn't I think of that when I had online classes? I love the way that, you know, renaming students ABC. So many good ideas that I really agree with, but those small details that actually makes so much difference. Like,
Yeah, they can
start with
make
a
a
warm up.
massive difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Big fan of all of those tips. Let's see if we can do a question or two. So, okay, I think you touched on this, but this is an issue. Abdullah says, I have almost 4 years of online experience, but it's challenging to control all the breakout rooms. How can we observe all the students who are working in breakout rooms?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have fewer breakout rooms, especially for last classes, so you can monitor them all. Yeah, so especially if you've got large classes, it's so important to not have 10 different breakout rooms to monitor. But yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's really challenging, and monitor quickly first.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, just check they're on task, because
Yeah.
it's awful if you go in after 5 minutes and you're like, oh, they're not doing it. Yeah. Okay, so I liked your idea as well of having people in different roles. That might help with when you've got bigger groups, but some people have got like a monitoring role.
Yeah, that's the tripod idea, isn't it? Yeah, and like having one person as being the monitor. And as one person said, that encourages learner autonomy as well. And you can train your students to get used to these roles as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we've got a question here from Jorge on Facebook, who says, how could we use online teaching to test the students' skills?
Well, maybe you could use the chat for that kind of thing as well. That's kind of like a good idea to sort of test them. Yeah, sort of the first one, and include that sort of competitive element as well. So have it like a quiz, maybe.
Right. Yes. I sometimes, so I had that feedback. I sometimes used to get students to send me their answers before we correct it. You know, like if you do a listening, and they can send you their answers by private message if they don't want it to be public. But I used to say, oh, it's good so we can share and compare. And then you know who's kind of got them right, and so they don't. It's hard to get that feedback otherwise, isn't it?
Yeah, use that direct messaging function as well is quite good. For testing. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm so sorry, but we're out of time. That was brilliant. It was so packed with really practical ideas, so thank you so much, Lauren.
Yeah, hopefully you've got all the ideas on the handout as well, on the that you can download. So all the activities that we talked about today is on there.
Exactly, it's on the handout, and if you want to watch anything again, then you've got the recording that will be on the website from tomorrow. So excellent, thank you everybody. Thanks to all our moderators as well. We've got Anne and we've got Riam on Facebook. Thanks so much. So our last and final session for today is starting in 15 minutes. So hope to see you there. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks so much.